Yeah, it's critical. It's like, how do we know we're really a good fit too? Because if I know
Absolutely.
up front based on your goals, I can't help you with those, I can always refer you to somebody that can. And I find that the two questions that people don't ask is number one, really what's important to you? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And the other thing is, what are you afraid of?
Hi, this is Garrett Sutton, and you're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening to our podcast, go leave us a 5-star review. All of our links can be found in the video description or show notes below. Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavagioni, and today's guest is Debra. And Debra and I were talking a little bit off camera, and I'm super excited to have her talk to you all today because I think her and I are like two peas in a pod when it comes to why we do what we do. So, Debra, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to the show.
Oh my God, it's such a pleasure, Mike. I am really excited to be on your show. I love what you're doing and keep it going for a long time.
I appreciate that. I do intend to keep this podcast going for a long time. So we'll see. I'll knock on wood somewhere. But yeah, awesome. So I'm really glad to have you on. Now, I know a little bit about you because we were talking a little bit. I read your bio, but my audience might not know that much about our guest today. Debra, if you could share a little bit about yourself, tell us your story. Who is Debra Schatzki?
Debra Schatzki is an advocate for people to live their best lives. And really, that's been my main focus for since I was born, basically. I'm happy to say that I am the survivor of a mom who our parents got divorced and we had no money and she had to do something about it because our father, who had a successful business, went out of business. And so she wound up, our mother wound up getting a job with a guy on Wall Street as an administrative assistant, and he couldn't pay her enough. So she went to work on Wall Street, not as an administrator, as actually the good body in the good body booth, Penn Station. And when the markets were really doing badly, she got scared and left that business and went to work for the Guardian as a pension expert and learned all about pension and savings and forced savings and became the first woman to be Man of the Year. So, as the first woman to be Man of the Year, her stipulation was that all her kids had to have finance degrees. So we all have at least one. I have three. And that's how I started the business, is really learning firsthand how things happen, tragedies happen that you don't have control over. And it's what you do about it that makes a difference, and what you focus on that really makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, no, I love that. Good. I guess big takeaway from that is that she wanted to make sure that no matter what, that financial literacy was passed down and said, "Hey, my kids are going to get finance degrees and you guys need to know what's going on." So with that being said, I feel like you don't see a lot of that when it comes to passing down financial literacy from generation to generation. You don't see a lot about that today. As a matter of fact, I don't think I hear people talk about that like on any podcast that I listen to. It's always about the journey to get there, not the
Like,
journey to keep it going after you're gone. We just have that expectation that, oh, we worked so hard for this money and we built up this generational wealth that, oh, my kids they'll take care of it. And my grandkids, they'll be fine because we built this up. Everything's going to be fine. But in reality, that's not what we're seeing happen, right? What do we call them? Trust fund babies that are very irresponsible with their money. With that, Debra, what are your thoughts on when it coming to that point where we actually pass down that financial literacy? So it's not so much the generational wealth that you're passing down, but also the knowledge. So What do you think is the best route to do that in today's society?
It's really one of the top priorities we have. So just to give you a little more of my background, I wound up working a family business. I left the family business. I created the insurance and financial services model that was adapted by many big accounting firms. They licensed my process called security income planning, which is a really easy but incredibly complex plan so that people can really build, protect, and preserve their wealth for generations. And it's in our security income plan that we always get into what the core values of our clients are. And we do it not only for our clients, we do it for ourselves, our team, and everybody. And core values, I think, are really such an important part. Like you were just saying, my mother passed down to us that one financial part, which was so important to her, is us knowing how to make money, no matter what we did. And for so many people and so many families we're working with, really getting to the core values of what they want their grandchildren to know about them, whether it's spending smart, being a smart spender, whether it's investing well, whether it's being educated, whether it's having family be first, whether it's spending time together, and the quality of time that you spend with your family is more important than other things. Whatever those messages you want to create for that next generation is so critical. And that's one of the things that we have so much fun working with our families on. And it's so much easier when they look at their grandchildren and say, this is what I want my grandchildren to know about us. We not only worked hard, we worked smart. We had what we had to do to survive and how we did it. What are those stories? And just there's so many beautiful stories in the world. And I think it's really a gift for us to start actually sharing those with our families and letting people know about the stories and what is important, not the money part of it alone.
Right, because there's so much more than just the money aspect, right? It is that entire journey to get there. And it's one of the things that I talk about a lot on this show is, and actually one of the reasons why I started this podcast too, was like to talk about not only my journey, but other people's journeys to financial freedom. And I think one of the first things you have to determine is your why. And why is it that you're doing what you're doing? And that's what creates that story that gets passed down, right, to your grandchildren. So, Deborah, I want to ask you, like, with everything that's been passed down to you and everything that you've done with that knowledge, and since then, what is your why for what you do?
My why is, to me, there is no bigger pleasure for me than to make a contribution to people. And contribution to me is really a big thing. And I find that in in my position, especially in being able to do security income plans for people and really drilling down on their cash flows and helping them answer or learn about how to invest or how to do planning to protect their family for generations or what they want their message to be for generations. It's just so meaningful every single day to help people articulate that, understand it, not be afraid. And that to me is the joy of what we do, is really being an advocate for somebody, letting individuals that we work with really have the ability to ask all the questions and feel confident around it, and have them think in a way that's not just about how much money I made this year or how much I earned, because that's interesting, but it's such a small part. And it's really all about tying it together in a bow and having people really learn how to articulate something that isn't taught.
Yeah, no, that's awesome because when there are a lot of things when you look at it from this perspective of where you're sitting at, there are a lot of things that just can't be taught, right? It's about the action, right? It's about how you got there. It's providing that example, right? Because there's certain things you could tell somebody how to do something till you're blue in the face. And if it's not in their heart or it's not something that really holds their interest, they're not going to care to carry that on. So that messaging is super important. And that's one of the things that you talked about earlier too. Like when you want these stories to be shared, you want everybody to know how and what that journey looked like, because then they realize the hard work and determination that it took from you to get there, and it's appreciated more, and it's something that they might want to really have that legacy live on. So speaking about what you do, security
Income planning.
income planning. Yeah, I couldn't read what I wrote here. Yeah, so can we talk about that a little bit? And
Oh,
can
yeah,
you
I'd
share a
love
little
to.
bit about how you put that all together, what it looks like for somebody that may have never heard of this before?
I put it together from experience of seeing what happened in our family from when I left our family business and wound up working for a private equity firm. And then I left because I created an accounting firm model for them for accounting firms to have financial service and investment advisory divisions when they were first allowed to in the late 90s, early 2000. And I worked for accounting firms for years. And one of the things that I found is that no matter how much money you had or didn't have, is that you really didn't understand the risk of your money. You really didn't understand what not only the risk was, but really what did you want to accomplish? What were your really audacious goals? Like why that was important to me is because I found that if you could find out what's really important to people, and not just getting by, as most people do their planning based on getting by, how to pay your bills, how to save money, how to make sure you do that. When you start to change it up and you find out what people's real passions and big goals are, and then you design their plan around that, it's amazing how much more interesting it is for people to do what they need to do in order to accomplish as much as they want. So security income plan was built based on number one, understanding the vulnerabilities of people, what they were afraid of, what their, like I said, their big goals were, and what their cash flow was. And then what the risk of that cash flow is critical. It's, can you lose your job? If you do, what have you done to plan for that? What other alternative income can you bring in? Just different ways of thinking and really opening up a much deeper conversation around cash flow and being able to show it to people. And once you do that, then I felt it was really interesting to look at people's investments. Most financial planners look at investments first without even knowing the cash flow or the really big goals that people have. And I find that to be backwards. I think you should really know a person and find out really what they're up to in the world and what their dreams are. And then look at the facts, their tax returns and their financial information, and then find out what the vulnerabilities are, what are the risks, and then create a plan based on that. Security income plan deals with cash flow, investment analysis and comparison, the good stuff we keep, the bad stuff we recommend not to keep. And then the protecting part is all about their insurances, whether it's medical, dental, life, long-term care, or any of that. And then the protecting part is, or the preserving part is all about their documents. And it really amazes me how many times we illustrate a person's estate and they have documents and we illustrate how the documents flow. And they're like, that's not what I want. I didn't want that situation. So that's what security income planning does, is it actually starts off, like I said, with their goals and their facts, and then we build it from there. And that's really all we do at our firm.
Yeah, no, I love that, because if you don't know what someone's goals are and right off the bat, you're just like, okay, here's what we need to do. How do you know what we need to do if you don't know what my goals are? And it's funny too, because I don't recall being asked about my goals from my financial advisor until after we talked about my current investments and where things are at. Because I use a financial advisor too. And for me, it's I need an outside perspective, because I have a good idea of what I'm doing when it comes to myself and my family, but I always value the input of someone else from the outside looking in. But yeah, I don't recall those questions being asked until after. It was like, okay, cool. So you got real estate here, you've got your thrift savings plan here, you've got your military pension, all this stuff. And but it's okay, cool. Now that we have all this together, what are you trying to do? And so why don't you ask me that first? So now you got me questioning things like, hey, why am I not getting to ask these questions first? So no, that's good. And I feel like for my listeners right now, take this time to actually sit down and think about what your goals are, right? Ask yourself, like, what is your why? Ask yourself these questions, because this conversation I'm having with Deborah right now, this just opened my eyes too, because I yeah, I don't think I've ever been asked that question first. So
Yeah, we
I
only
think
do it
that's
first.
important.
Yeah, it's critical. It's like, how do we know we're really a good fit too? Because if I
Absolutely.
know up front based on your goals, I can't help you with those, I can always refer you to somebody that can. And I find that the two questions that people don't ask is number one, really what's important to you? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And the other thing is, what are you afraid of? Because truthfully, it's the things that people are afraid of that keep them from doing what it is that they want to do. And those should be the hello questions to us. That's what we think should be the beginning.
Absolutely. But by going down that road and asking those questions first, have you ever found like anything that stuck out that tied to someone's financial dependence, any type of lifestyle choices that they were making or anything like that that made things a little bit harder just based off of asking those questions right off the bat?
Oh my God, all the time. It's just, it's pretty much at hello. I'll give you two stories. One's in my book. I wrote a book called Chaos to Joy. And the Chaos to Joy book is about 4 or 5 actually women who came to me with real trauma. And through really doing their plans, finding out what's important, they were able to get through the trauma and actually have fabulous lives. But one of them, really huge problem was when we did her plan, found out what was really important to her, found out what she was afraid of, did her plan. She needed a huge raise, $50,000. And she moved here from the Midwest and didn't expect to hear that from a planner. But when I looked at her vulnerabilities in her plan, I'm like, you're way underpaid for what you do. You're gonna need to ask for a raise. And she almost fell off her chair. She's, you got to be kidding me. How am I going to ask this major institution for that kind of raise? I said, you have 3 choices. You're going to either ask for it and get it. You're not going to ask for it, not get it, or you can ask for it. Maybe they'll say no, or okay, we'll give you this much. And so she did it. And it was so transformational for her because this was a woman that was so professional and famous in her world, but never knew how to ask for money. So that's a perfect example of the difference that it makes when you have somebody help you along like this.
Yeah, so it sounds to me that she might have been a little introverted too, right? And a lot of times when you're introverted, you have a lot of trouble going to someone to ask those kind of questions. It's probably fair to say that she might have had trouble just even talking to you about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the next question I want to ask you, because you've probably dealt with this quite a few times. When you get somebody that is introverted, right? They're just not good with talking to people, or it makes them uncomfortable, or it just zaps their energy. How do you help them like overcome that to one, build the confidence to go ask that question, but two, also just break out of that comfort zone bubble to be a little bit more open about their situation?
When you can find that hook that gets them out of their head and into their conversation about what they see that they want to make a difference with or in the world, it's really, we have a lot of introverted clients. A lot of our clients are brilliant and they're not socially experts, let's put it that way. And it's interesting how so many of them start off in the plan and really, especially when you ask them about their dreams, they just, what are you kidding? Dreams. I just want to get through this meeting. But what happens is that they're usually quiet. And then what I see is when they start to get the information the way that they can hear it, all of a sudden they start sharing. And it usually has to do with something that they want to achieve or make a difference with. And so I found that when somebody is more introverted, I ask them that up front. I could tell, and my team can tell, what are the things that you really want to make an impact around or in? And when you start asking people that, it's amazing how they come from shy or introverted to actually being passionate. One of the things me and my team try to do is really find out what people's passions are and how they want to make an impact and really what they see for them and their families and their community, their work, their churches, their temples, or wherever.
Okay, no, I absolutely love that. Now, so Deborah, I want to ask you, I'm going to ask you something about now your core financial principles, right? Because I have a good idea of what it is you want to do when it comes to helping other people. But what about you, Deborah? What are your core financial principles? And again, this is more of like a personal question to you because I guess I'm trying to see what is that foundation and that bedrock that you stand on.
First is always be generous. Always. With your time, with your heart, with your love, with everything that's meaningful. First is always to be generous. We have always made, my husband and I have made a commitment, and with our kids, to contribute to our community. Really, not as a give back. I think people get caught up with this giving back, meaning like you took something, but you didn't take anything. It's really just participating, really opening up your heart, opening up your love. And that's so being generous. Another thing is really learning. I don't think you should ever stop learning, whether it's a formal education, whether it's classes with Dan Sullivan or you with coaching or with Tony Robbins or Jacko Will. It just, come on. There's so much information out there. We should be, when we get stopped, we should find out who is talking about those topics to give us information and confidence. So I'd say information. We are all really committed to education, both formally and through podcasts and other ways. And the other thing that's really important to my family is family. And we don't just say it, we actually do it, act it, mean it, where we will go out of our way to be with each other. And we make sure that my siblings that are no longer here on the East Coast or wherever they are, that we schedule time together, because that's important, whether the Zoom meetings, whether the vacations, whether you've got to put your money where your mouth is. And if family is critical, show me what you've been doing and what your plan around that is. Health, that's always been core to us. We work out almost every day. We make sure we're eating well. We try not to overdrink or over party. I say try because this time of year is hard.
Yeah. We're at the turn of the year. So
And so generosity and graciousness, education and learning, community, family, foundation. Those are the main things that really get us up every day, and exercise, well-being outside, and making the world a better place.
yeah, no, I love that. Okay, so now I've got that foundation that you have. I want to ask you, like, so when it comes to your clients, what are some of the other things you discuss besides their investment strategy to get down to the root of what it is they're trying to accomplish with their goals?
The investment strategy is actually simple once you actually, like I said, really do a deep dive in their financial situation and you match their financial situation to what their dreams are. So if they want to have their kids go to college and pay for that, or if they want to be able to contribute to something that's meaningful for them, if they want to do charitable work with their family and stuff. So first, once we get a clear understanding of where they want to spend their money and how they want to contribute it to the world and what their vulnerability is as far as their money, if they have too much invested. One of the things that I did, which was really tough, was when I was with the large accounting firms, I noticed that a lot of the high-end investors had Madoff investments. And as I didn't know Madoff was a problem at that point, I was concerned by the percentage of Madoff in their portfolios. And it was really scary to me because in almost all the situations, if they lost that investment, it would really cramp their lifestyle. And that was the thing I was mostly worried about, is what you couldn't see really what was going on in the statements for they were Excel spreadsheets. So you really didn't have the verification like most private equity or hedge funds, but it just was unusual. And when we asked them and looked at the vulnerability and took it out of their plan, they can see what was wrong with their plan, where they were vulnerable and how they wouldn't be able to pay for what was important to them. Then when Madoff fell apart, it became so ingrained in my essence to really find out about the vulnerability. So when we go over investments with clients, we really go over it from diversification, from quality, from allocation, based on what they need and all their goals. And it's really interesting. There's a lot of good investments out there. And the ones that are really good, we keep, and the ones that aren't good, we will make recommendations and either manage it within our framework or make recommendations on where to get that done. But it really is all about understanding.
No, I definitely appreciate that answer. And so now I want to ask you if I heard you correctly, you had clients that were involved in the Bernie Madoff
The
Ponzi
firms that I
scheme?
worked with had a lot of clients that were from New York, and I'm Jewish. Madoff targeted most of the major Jewish organizations and
Mhm.
colleges, and that was a lot of the people that were really hurt by his work.
Did you see many of those folks, were any of them like given anything back? Like I know that they were trying to give some money back and help those folks out. Do you know anybody that was like really, I guess the real question I want to ask is, do you know anybody that really lost everything due to
Yeah,
that?
I do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is unfortunate. See,
yeah.
and that's why it's important that you really understand who you're working with and that they're not just showing you some Excel spreadsheet. And yeah, wow. Okay. Yeah, I was not expecting that answer
Nobody
or
does.
anything involving Madoff.
Nobody had
So
the privilege, not many people had the privilege of having to deal with that.
yeah,
And
wow, that's rough. And I can
it
only
was
imagine
horrible.
what it's like to have some of your clients like affected by that, and now you're trying to help them recover and bounce back from something like that. So this actually ties in with a question that I wanted to ask you because I haven't asked this question too much, but I have a feeling I'm going to get a really good response from you on this.
Thanks.
But Deborah, what is your superpower?
My superpower is seeing the elephant in the room. I can really see and smell problems, like big ones, and being able to talk about it and bring it up and actually help people process what needs to be done to deal with it.
Right on. All right, you can see the elephant in the room and you can say, "Hey, look, it's right there behind you, and it's a big one." Okay, no, I appreciate that. Awesome. So with that being said, there's probably so the folks that were affected by that probably had a long road to recovery, right?
Oh,
So
they're not recovered.
what's that?
They're not recovered.
No, I'm saying they have a long road to recovery, right?
Yeah.
So in a position that you're in, what are some of the things that you do to help them? I want to say bounce back, but you really can't bounce back from something like that. But what are some things that you would say, like how to change their lifestyle or change some of their goals and be more realistic with what they have left? How do you approach somebody in a situation like that and try to help them recover as much as they can?
It goes back to the core values, and that's what got me so interested in that, because money wasn't the most important thing I found for most people. It was really what they wanted to contribute in the world and what they needed in order to live comfortably. It didn't mean to live extravagantly. They were living extravagantly, but extravagance wasn't where their meaning was. That wasn't them. That was their lifestyle and their ability to do that because of their incredible amount of success and money. But it's so amazing to me and wonderful when people get clear about, like I said, what their core values are and what's really important, and then you build the plan based on that. All of a sudden you don't need 3 houses. You can Airbnb, and that can be part of your budget. You can live a really quality lifestyle when you're clear about what's really important and who's really important in your life. And that's where you start to rebuild, not rebuild, that's where you start to build. Because I don't say it's a rebuild, I say it's a build where
Yeah.
that house got destroyed. Let's just say a prayer, whatever you want to complete that episode. And let's move forward now with our new future. And what's that future going to be? And really, what are we going to do to have it be more secure? And so you understand and then build from there. And that's what we've been
Yeah.
doing. And I will tell you, in all the cases with any of those clients that I have, are they living the lavish lifestyle of having houses in Nantucket and Hawaii and stuff like that? No, they're not. But are they enjoying, and do they have meaningful lives, and are they financially fit? Yes. And that's important.
So I feel like, Deborah, that is them discovering what wealth truly is to them, right? It's not about the money or what you really leave behind after you're gone, right? Because that's the legacy you want to leave. It's not so much the money, it's the legacy, right? The legacy. And then also while you're here, like what does that quality of life look like, right? If you're always chasing, I guess the kids call it now, chasing the bag or
Mm.
chasing money, if that's what you're doing all the time and just always chasing it. And we have this hustle culture, right? I know I got wrapped up into it, right, too. Like I'm doing all these things, and I actually had to back off a bunch because I realized I am slowly killing myself here, trying to do so much at once. So I stepped back and I actually throttled back on a lot of things that I've been working on because I realized like that quality of life is super important. So if I'm sitting here just constantly grinding and grinding and not paying attention to everything else that's happening, and then all of a sudden I'm shortening my life because of the stress and the anxiety and everything else that comes with that, what kind of quality of life am I providing myself? So that I think that's a question that you have to ask yourself is what kind of quality of life do you want to have? So what does that wealth look like to you, and how do you get there based off of that quality of life goal that you set for yourself, right? So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
No, my thoughts are everything on that, because if you say your family is important and then you're working 60 to 100 hours a week, it's not really showing up that way unless you're working with your family and they are really enjoying that time with you. But it's like you really need to evaluate not only what you want, but how you spend your time. And if you're not, I'm in a relationship with my husband almost 30 years, it's a lot of work. But if we as a family, my husband and I do our future worksheet together every around Thanksgiving to now, so that by the end of the year, we know what we really want to accomplish in 2024 or in the following year. And if we didn't spend the time to really find out what's important to each other, to our kids, to us together, all together, just goes by like that. And the really important stuff gets missed. And that's why I love the fact that you said for yourself that you got off of the treadmill moving so quickly in so many different ways and slowed it down. It's critical. So much value
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. Okay, so I definitely appreciate your perspective on that and just appreciate everything, Deborah. This has been absolutely awesome. Lots of great info coming out from here, and I feel like this episode already is generating a lot of impact to my listeners. So I really appreciate that. What I'd like to do now, Deborah, is transition this into something that I call the final round. It's where I'm
Okay.
going to ask you the same 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on the show. It gives us a good idea of where you're at when you get put in a tough situation, which I can already tell you, I know you're going to crush this part of this interview. So if you're ready to go, we'll get that party started.
Let's go.
All right, let's do this. So, Deborah, first question of the final round is, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made when it comes to your finance or business life?
Having my accounting and financial files in an office that I was working in.
Are you talking
And
about
not
like your personal?
separated. All my personal stuff in a major office I was working in. That, yeah, I never have your personal stuff in your office. It should be home or in a separate place so that you always have access to it just in case something happens. I was
That's
very
a great
involved
point.
with 9/11. I was
Yeah.
we had offices down there. I had another situation. That's a really important thing, is to make sure your personal stuff is not where you work. You got to make sure it's protected and that it's on a cloud in a safe place in more than one place.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, definitely appreciate that. I think that's an important takeaway there. Okay, so Deborah, this next question kind of ties into that first one, and it's, what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started out?
To plan. I should have hired, I got smart and hired professionals, coaches and planners pretty early on. My husband's an actor, and the only way I would have been able to survive our relationship is doing what I did, which was hire coaches to help me, and people help me, because otherwise I wouldn't spend the quality of time with him. And he has a lot more time to spend than I do because of our professions, and really hiring professionals from hello. I think everyone should find it. We are blessed in this country that you have so many consultants. Find good consultants to help you accomplish what you want. It's the best thing to do.
All right, absolutely. Find the right help.
Yeah.
Okay, Deborah, next question for you is, do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is just getting started today?
Yeah. Sit down, write what you really want to have happen in your life, and go over your finances and see if it's mapping out to help you accomplish what you want. And if it's not, get help. And if you don't like doing it, get help. And if you just want to do it with somebody, get help. It goes back to the last one. Really work with professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. Work with professionals, and you don't have to do it all on your own. Okay, Deborah, final question of the final round. And I will preface this with besides your own, because we talked about it a little bit earlier, but we'll talk about it again in a second. But besides your own, do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book or podcast or both?
So I started with Napoleon Hill, probably when I originally started. I don't think that there's so many books, whether it's, oh my God, I'm constantly reading and listening to books. I would say the ones that were different that I really respected and liked was Jocko Willig's book. I don't know if you read it, but I really liked a
I
lot of
just finished it not too long ago, actually.
yeah, and I really
Yep.
enjoy it. Was from a different perspective, and that's what I try to do, because I try not to keep in the same lane. I try to really check out a lot of different lanes of stories like that, from Breakfast with Buddha, Lunch with Buddha, Dinner with Buddha. So Ray DeLeo's Principles. I could go all over the place with that, because there's so many unbelievable books out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of great books for people to read. I have been more on the audiobook kick lately,
Me too.
because it's reading is one thing. I love, like, when I have the time to sit down and read a book, but a lot of times if I'm commuting somewhere, man, I could just throw on an audiobook or a YouTube video. That actually, YouTube has a lot of audiobooks on there, for just so you know, out there, if you want a free audiobook in certain areas. But yeah, I could just sit there and listen to that on the way. And that's actually how I finished Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership. So it
Oh,
was,
I listened to it. He
yeah,
reads
I
it.
listened to it. It was phenomenal. And then just being able to hear it read by the authors too. So you get to, I guess you could say, hearing it from the horse's mouth, right? It's just a whole different experience. Okay. So
Yeah.
Deborah, that is it for the final round. So I definitely appreciate your recommendations there. But now I want to ask you the most important question that I'm going to ask you throughout this entire interview, right? Because we talked about it a little bit. You mentioned your book earlier, but where can people find more information about you? Do you have a website, social media you can share with us? Also, where can we get your book and anything that is Debra Schatzki? Please help us out here so we can find you.
Our website is a great place, not only because you can find me, which is BPP, which is Build, Protect, Preserve. What's great about it is not only do we have our books, what we're watching, what we're eating, what we're cooking, but we have a lot of tools on our website that people can enjoy. And there also is a link for our book. And we do free consultations all the time. And even if it's just to answer a question, we love that. I have a team of really brilliant women. I have an all-woman team, which is very unusual in the financial services, wealth management, and family office business.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. It's a lot of fun. And then the other thing is my book is on Amazon, and it's Chaos to Joy by Debra Schatzki. And it's a different kind of book. It's like a Tuesday with Maury, in that they're interviews with these 5 fabulous women that really had awful hardships, and what it took for them to get through it, and the professionals, which was my team and other professionals that we work with, to get these women through it. And the stories are phenomenal. And that can be purchased on Amazon.
All right, awesome. So I'll make sure those links are in the show notes, make it easy for our listeners to find you and to find your book. The only thing I ask my listeners, you guys know the deal. Just don't do it if you're driving right now. Wait till you get to a safe place to copy and paste or click away. So Deborah, this has been absolutely phenomenal. I really appreciate it, but I want to ask you one more question to close things out.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
Please sit down with the people you love and really spend the time in creating your futures, like what you really want to have, and do your budget and your plan and your calendar to reflect it. When you really align yourself with what you want your life to look like and be, and you schedule it and you hire professionals, it will be extraordinary. Much better than if you don't.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Deborah, again, thank you so much for taking the time today to join me on the show and share your knowledge and experience with us, your story, and what you do. It's just absolutely amazing. You're helping a lot of people out there, and I hope that getting this episode out there, you're able to help more people. But again, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us.
And thank you for doing this, because without you, we wouldn't have this ability to get out the message to so many people. We really appreciate what you do, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hey, I also want to thank all of my listeners. I want to thank you all so very much for joining me and our special guest, Debra Schatzki, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's episode with Debra. Aloha from Hawaii, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.